I am an activist. My father was a poet. I am not. I inherited from my mom, however, the activism. And apparently, Amara asked me for my bio and went astray. I didn't see it, so I used the time to talk about, in fact, about my mom, because if I inherited something, I inherited the activism from her. My mom, myself, obviously Palestinian, and out of a family of 8, I was the only one who was born out of Palestine. So my family really suffered the Nakba, the disaster, in its full strength. I was the only one born outside. After they had their lovely life, everything going right in Jaffa, they found themselves expelled in Damascus, starting from scratch, no money, no home, no that, and you can imagine what does that mean. I was relatively, when I born, so the disaster was new. It was 7 years old, and if you are good in mathematics, you know I am 33 years old. But I have seen the suffering of the Palestinians in the camps. My mother was a headmaster for a school for United Nations Refugees Agency, and I accompanied her to the camps, and I've seen the suffering in its full shape. It's not pleasant. She managed by time to be one of the founders of Palestinian Union of Women in Jerusalem, in fact, in 1965, and that became a very big organization. She was a co-founder, and because also she was in school, she noticed that the families of the students are not helping their kids in their homework, and when she asked, she figured out that a lot of them are illiterate, really, after the Nakba, and they were not well educated. So she founded a charity to educate these illiterate women by using the teacher at evening time, and that became a big charity. The third one, she found that there are elderly Palestinians who had no one to look after them, and no money, nothing looks after them. So she founded a third charity, which was to look after these elderly Palestinians, quite old. I was young. They were really old, and no one looked after them. And that became a big charity. As a result, I think, of her becoming so much known in the Palestinian community, she was elected in the Palestinian parliament in exile. And it kills me that she died mad without seeing Palestine again. Anyway, I'm here not to be sad, to be optimistic. So we've heard about the disaster and all the struggle and all that. We need the solution. So I will talk about BDS as I was introduced. I helped in founding the BDS Australia. We started with a different name, Palestine Support Network Australia, if you see it on the booklet. And then we rebranded, so now we are BDS Australia, so it's much easier for people to understand. And in my presentation, I'm going to say why BDS. I think I'll try to be short. I know I'm the last speaker, and you have been bombarded with a lot of information. And what are the goals? The answers to anti-BDS arguments, and BDS Australia brief about the historical campaign and current campaign, and if you like to help, how you can help. I like that Ismail Abu Shtiya, which shows the woman like a phoenix out of the destruction. It's a beautiful image. Anyway, the Palestinians tried so many ways of struggles. Political PLO was established. Those who are a bit older know that the PLO was established in 1965. They tried the political negotiations, and all these negotiations didn't work. They tried the military guerrilla war to achieve something. The most achieved way of struggle, in my view, was the two intifada, allowed or enabled Israel to give in a little bit and go to the Oslo Accords and start negotiating peace. Negotiation, but the output is zero. And in 2004, the International Court of Justice ruled that the apartheid wall was illegal. And the Palestinians, after 1 year, 2005, some of the really well-educated young Palestinians, young compared to me, and decided that we should do something else. And they came up with the idea of boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign. They managed to get 170 civil organizations in Palestine to agree together and come together and call on the conscience of people to support the Palestinians in this goal. Because obviously the imbalance of power didn't help the Palestinians to achieve their goals with all the other ways of struggles that I talked about. What's the merit of the BDS? It's a non-violent action, and that's not new. The Palestinians in history have the longest strike against mandates of the British, 6 months. And we had so many ways of non-violent struggles along history. We are not new to that. However, it is still inspired by the South Africa, of course, model. That was a major model that built it on, and the civil rights movement in USA. That's the blacks against the whites discrimination. So what does the BDS call to do? First, to end occupation totally, dismantle the settlements and the apartheid wall, and equality between Palestinians and Israelis in Israel, 1948, Israel proper, and the right of the Palestinians to go back to their homeland. I don't need to talk about the settlements. I think you have heard about that. That it started Arab land in the West Bank, and you see how it becomes a settlement. And then the Israelis says, let's negotiate, let's sit on the table, and meanwhile they want to keep building settlements, as Ali Abu Naim says, as similar to when you negotiate with someone about a pizza piece, and meanwhile they are eating it. So by the time you come to anything, it's done. The boycott, it has 3 strategies. Boycott, as the name says, obviously, boycott, divestment, and sanctions. The boycott creates opportunities to raise awareness, and that's an important part of the boycott strategy. Empowers people, everyone can practice it. It's an immediate form of action, doesn't need a lot of work. In the next stage, you could do, it's not really linear, you can do combination, but it's a grassroots movement. You'd like to build first strong grassroots movement which understand the concepts and work on the boycott. Then you start to talk about divestment, that businesses and non-government organizations withdraw their investments from companies, international companies that support, that in particular, of course, has business in Israel and especially in the West Bank and like the occupied territories. Well, every Israeli business is a target, but you have to prioritize. And what the BDS tries to do is to take first the international companies that have profit from the occupation. And then, hopefully, at one stage, we will reach the sanctions where the governments start boycotting and stop fair trading with Israel and arms embargo and all of that. This is what happened in South Africa, and we know that it all worked. We have 2 streams of mainly in the BDS. One is the cultural and academic boycott. And why is that? Because really the Israeli universities are major, willing, and persistent accomplices in the Israeli regime, occupation, settler colonialism, and apartheid. And they are involved in every aspect of the military phase of Israel, including the developing of weapons system. The other mainstream, which is the mainstream, is all other products and services. What are the anti-arguments against, the anti-BDS arguments, as we hear from the manufacturers of Zionist lobby aspire? BDS is anti-Semitic. Of course, it's not anti-Semitic. In BDS Australia, we are 12 members now, committee. We have 3 Jews origins, and there are plenty of Jewish organizations around the world and individuals who support the Palestinian cause and call for the BDS. BDS calls for elimination of Israel, and that's not true, because the BDS doesn't ask the Jews to leave. Believe it or not, they can still stay. We are happy to live with them peacefully. As was mentioned, it doesn't make any sense that someone who has no resemblance whatsoever in the eastern suburb or St. Ives has the right now to go and live in my home in Jaffa. I don't think this is fair by any means. BDS is violation of free speech, and that's not also false, because the BDS does not restrict academics employed by Israeli university from publishing their work or attending conferences. BDS calls on for individuals and institutions not to attend conferences that are held by Israeli government-funded organizations. How do we choose our targets? The reason I present this, in fact, quickly is because most people who really sympathize with us and want to do something, they think it's the best if they come to us with a new idea or a new target. It is not like that, really. Based on BDS National Committee in Palestine, and there is really very strong organization for BDS as a global movement. It is based on good research. We have to choose our targets with considering quite good criteria, like, for instance, how much it's impactful, how much does it complement a global call, campaign, is there an alternative for the product we call to boycott? So these are like just an example. And like here, I'm putting the template we use in BDS Australia, where we discuss few options, and every committee member will take a target, does a lot of research about these criteria, and comes back and say this is high impact, medium impact, or low impact. And when we add the score all together, we decide on where we go. All right, what happened in Australia as campaigns? We have participated, in fact, in global victories. We have joined the call for Veolia, and Veolia has withdrawn all its businesses from Israel. The last they kept was their investment in light rail in Jerusalem, and under the pressure, and because BNC said, go on, continue, we continued, and they sold their investment, 100% victory. G4S is the same. We also joined them, and in fact, they have withdrawn their businesses from Israel. They have kept they kept one partnership with Israeli company in police training centers, and that's why we are still going. However, the biggest victory we had in Australia was the joint venture between Royal Flying Doctors and Elbait System. When we heard about this, we said that is quite relevant for the Australian public, who really looks at the Royal Flying Doctors as a prestigious Nobel organizations that treats the injured and looks after patients, while our Elbait System is an arm manufacturing Israeli company. So we said it's not possible, guys, that one who saves lives goes in joint venture with one who destructs and kills life. And we ran a campaign, and we achieved victory. At the end of the day, Royal Flying Doctors said we are not going there. What are our current campaigns? Currently, you must possibly heard about Eurovision boycott. Anyone hasn't heard about you? If you haven't, then we are not loud enough. We should shout more. We had a rally just last Saturday, and we are on it, and we really love you to put your petition to SBS not to broadcast it. Basically, there are two requests. our campaign requests are really simple, and we really love people like you to come and join us because it's simple. There are two petitions, one for the SBS not to broadcast it, and there is one petition for the Australian artist who is representing Australia, Kate Miller, IPK, not to go. She's gone, she decided she will go. SBS is still telling us they are going to go. But if we really express our objection, it does bother. It does bother the Zionist lobby. We can feel it from their feedback. We knew from the beginning, in fact, that we may not turn the decisions that we wanted to make noise about it. We managed to get Roger Waters to send to Kate Miller a call. In fact, we asked him to send her a message. He was so generous. He's a great man. He recorded a video for her. If there was time, we can play it maybe while we are eating knafa. And there are also a couple of songs that young people have developed in contrast to the Eurovision. And I'd also like to play one if there's time while eating knafa. The coming campaign, in fact, we started, but on a small scale because Eurovision took all our resources. It's Hillier Packer, and it's very relevant to universities and students. HP is known to help the Israeli military system in securities, in IDs, in these cages which you have experienced, treating people like animals. And there is a strong campaign, strong call by the PNC in Palestine that we go full throttle in this campaign, and we really like your help. Churches in USA have divestment from HP. Today, Peter in the morning talked in an event in Australia. There is a group called Palestine Israel Economic Group called for boycotting HP, and this is a significant step. It's the first time a body like that, church, that calls for boycott in Australia. So far, the work has been by us and in the booklet. There were a few initiatives here and there in different states, but now there is this body. So we went and supported, and Peter came and gave a very strong speech. How can you help? Visit our website, sign our petition to SPS and Kate Miller Heidecke, sign global petition against HP and all future campaigns, join BDS Australia. You can go online, send us an email, we'll get you joined. Visit our Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and all the standard things you can do. Before I finish, a couple of things. If you don't mind, I will ask Amara and the organizing committee that they send us all your contact details instead of us bothering you now with your emails and phone, and we'll send you the first email or whatever, and you can say, I don't want that anymore. We'll stop, obviously, but I thought this is a quick way of doing it. There are plenty of stickers for HP. Please take as much as you can, give them to your friends. And finally, I know this is not the norm, and I know that he may not like it. Every time I listen to Peter, I think, how am I going to thank this man? It's someone who is so knowledgeable, research-based, ethical, and has this value system to be on our side. He deserves a good round of applause.